talk from now and in perpetuity. Brendan has listened to me talk no less than 10,000 hours over the last 22 years, often several hours in one sitting. That's a lot. Even more than I've listened to myself talk. Brendan is free to talk to me socially, but that is entirely up to him. If he chooses to do so, I will be delighted and promise not to abuse the privilege. It has been a life-changing ride on my yammering, and I am forever grateful to Brendan for keeping me at my best.
I'm more than happy.
I'm going to sign it.
You sign it. I will witness it. And this is kind of a commutation. I mean, essentially, Brendan is released.
Yes, it's a big day from me.
From you. You know, I have a sense that he kind of liked hanging out with you.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a partnership.
Yeah. I mean, it may be a little Stockholm syndrome.
No, he won't let that happen. Yeah, I'm completely aware that I have not had that impact on his brain, because if I did, we'd both be in trouble. He's like the better half of, he's protected me. You know, I'll say shit. and it'll go on, I'll record stuff, and in the back of my head, I'll think like, Brendan's he's not gonna leave that in.
No.
Yeah, it's
well, you gotta have, he's like your super ego.
That's exactly right. And he's a functioning part of my memory.
Yes.
Like, I don't remember, like, obviously I remember our conversation, but there's been 1,600 and more, almost 1,700 conversations.
That's a lot. So how are you, so tell me how you're feeling. Look, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'm honored to be on your last show. How are you feeling about this whole thing? Transition.
Well,
moving on from this thing that has been, one of the defining parts of your career in your life.
16 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
I mean, I maybe you could help me. I feel okay. I feel like I'm sort of ready for the break, but there is sort of a fear there of what do I do now? I mean, I'm busy, but not unlike your job. I'm going to compare my job to the presidency now.
I think it's pretty similar.
Thank you. I've got a lot of people who over the last 16 years have grown to rely on me.
Yes.
And
you've got a lot of fans just around.
Yeah. And
in unlikely places.
Oh, yeah? As in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, they need something.
Right.
That there is a feeling of like, how am I going to feel, less alone? How am I going to deal with my mental this or that? And how am I going to find, a way to exist in the world that we're living in? I mean, I'm not offering them solutions, but I am commiserating. And it's comforting.
They trust you.
Yeah.
And they feel as if what you're going through and what they're going through occupies a similar space.
Right.
And so they don't feel like they're traveling this journey that can be frightening alone sometimes.
That's right.
And there's a power in the human voice, you know, that you grow attached to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you left, what did you do for your mental health with the weight of...
Well, look, how old are you now?
I'm 62.
Right. So, you've still got a couple of chapters left. And my theory was, somebody gave me advice right before I was leaving office. And it was, don't rush into what the next thing is. Take a beat. And take some satisfaction looking backwards and saying, you know what? Didn't get everything done that I wanted.
Right.
Wasn't always exactly how I planned it. But there's a body of work there that I'm proud of.
Right.
Pat yourself on the back for a second. Just be a little brain dead for a while. I've read a bunch of books that had been stacked up. I had a big deficit with my wife and had to kind of work my way out of, right? So we went on a lot of trips and hung out and just had nice dinners and slept in. And then I think, what this is an opportunity for you, it was an opportunity for me, was figuring out, all right, what's my next highest and best use? What's what's a new purpose
Yeah.
that scratches that itch? And it may not come to you right away. The podcast was kind of a random thing, right? You said, "Oh, let's try this out," and
Yeah.
you didn't know it was going to go for 16 years. I assume when you did the first show,
No, we didn't know anything.
you didn't know anything. You were trying to figure it out, and so, but you probably have an inkling of, what you just described about people trusting you connecting, partly because you're willing to be vulnerable in front of people and kind of let them know, what's going on inside your gut. There's a power to that. What's another way of channeling, right? That in a character in a movie, or
Right.
or even you doing stand up. There's something more raw, honest, exposed about what you do when you're just having a conversation and connecting with people. And so the question is, well, is there another way for me to catch that?
Yeah.
But you don't have to rush into it. I guess my main thing would be, take your time.
Right.
Unless you really got some bills to pay.
No, I'm okay. But like, it feels like I remember when you left, and there is this sort of a vacuum, and in terms of like obviously my responsibility to my audience is different. But how do you sort of, did you feel the weight of that responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, what was unusual for me was obviously a lot of what I represented.
Yeah.
A lot of what Michelle and I had tried to project, the values, our thinking about America. My successor seemed to represent the opposite.
Right.
Not seemed, did.
Yeah.
And so I think there was a lot of anger, a lot of sadness,
Yeah.
some fear among a big chunk of the country. And one of the problems with the American political system is, although we have political parties, we don't have a parliamentary system. So basically, the president, in my case, Democrat, I leave office, and there's no obvious person who's now the shadow prime minister, the leader of the party for the Democrats, right? And so there were a lot of terrific people who were doing good work, but we have this weird situation where you don't have a designated person who's speaking on behalf of the whole party. So I actually found myself drawn back in to day-to-day politics or commentary more than I had wanted to be.
After the second term.
After in 2017, 2018. And I thought I was going to be able to remove myself more from being out there in public, and was going to be able to concentrate on what I really wanted to do, which was coach the next generation of leadership.
Sure.
Move from player to coach, essentially. And I kept on being asked to comment on news of the day and look at this outrage. And why aren't you out there more? And that kind of thing. And look, that's flattering.
Yeah.
And it's an indication that you made a connection with people.
Sure.
But I tried to be a little bit disciplined about recognizing that I'd moved on to a new phase where I did not have formal power. I have some, hopefully, moral suasion, some credibility.
Yeah.
But I didn't have formal power. And so more than anything, for the long term, what I could do that would be most helpful would be to start promoting lifting up, shining a spotlight on those, that next generation of leadership and talent, new voices. Because part of what also happens is, as you get older, Michelle might joke about this, no matter how pretend otherwise. You're starting to get a little out of touch. You're not completely, plugged into the
And it
zeitgeist.
happens naturally.
It just happens. I mean, look, I don't, my brain doesn't register TikTok
Yeah, I need
the same way that my 16-year-old niece.
Right.
Right?
You gotta get a guy to do it for you.
It's not just the technology itself.
Yeah.
It's that I'm not plugged in. I'm not relating to the cultural stream in the same way that somebody who's 20 or 25 or even 35 is.
But that's an interesting point, is that, human connection, TikTok, like when you and I did talk in 2015, the landscape was not as flooded. Instagram didn't have the power it does. TikTok, I don't even know if it was around.
No, not that I.
And there was a way of making a real connection, and it seems like a lot of these platforms now, like TikTok, is just an inundation of stuff that, like I know when I talk to you, and I can feel it, and you can hear it, that there's a human connection,
Right.
and it seems like that's necessary.
Yeah, listen. I've been wrestling with this for a while. People talk about me being the first digital president, and,
Right.
and that's true. Obviously, the internet existed before me, but when I came into office in 2009,
Yeah.
the smartphone was not yet widely around. And so the smartphone comes out around 2010. Facebook, Twitter, a lot of social media is just taking off.
It seemed optimistic.
It did, right?
Yeah.
So there's all this sense of this is human connection.
Yeah.
My campaign wouldn't work. I joke about the fact that I was an early adapter of all this social media, not because, by the way, I was so smart.
Yeah.
It was that my campaign was broke enough that I had to rely on a bunch of 20 and 25-year-olds volunteering in our office.
Yeah.
And they'd say like, hey, Senator, this is a website. And I said, oh, website, great. You know? Well,
Sounds good.
Sounds good. And say, so you can have pictures and you can have video on there.
Yeah.
And see this little box, like people can click it and they can contribute money.
Right.
And I'd be like, really?
That's good.
That seems useful. And then they'd say, and this one, they can like volunteer. And I'd be like, well, that's great. Yeah, let's do that. And so I part of the reason I was elected was we were adapting all these new media. But this dates myself when I talk to audiences. I was like, my social media, our social media was MySpace
Yeah.
and Meetup.
Right.
Now, Meetup is the one that I always tell people is the most interesting to me.
I don't even know what it is. I missed it.
So Meetup was, it was a social media
Early, yeah.
early application.
Yeah.
And you could send basically text over. So let's say there were a bunch of volunteers up in Idaho.
Oh, yeah.
And, Idaho is not a big blue state with a lot of delegates, so we don't have the resources to send a whole staff,
Right.
paid staff up to Idaho. But we have, a few volunteers. Some people, some supporters, they send us a message saying, hey, we're Idahoans for Obama.
Yeah.
And we'd love to build we think, you can win this state. And so we go, all right. So we'd send a bunch of information through Meetup, and we'd give them the app. And basically what the app would do is you could send out, here's Obama's positions on things, here's, dates of debates and this and that. But the main thing it did, hence the name, was it would help these volunteers organize themselves to meet up.
In person.
In person.
Yeah.
In a church basement, in a bar,
Right.
in a VFW hall, whatever. And what I always tell people was wonderful about this rudimentary app was they'd show up when they actually met in person. And maybe they were assuming that they were all thought the same way and
Right.
had the same positions on everything. And they'd show up at some Obama volunteer meeting, and you'd have what looked like an ex-army sergeant with a crew cut,
Yeah.
and you'd have a young black woman with a nose ring,
Yeah.
and you'd have a suburban mom, with some kids. And it turned out that by virtue of meeting in person, you kind of realize people are a little more complicated.
Sure.
Maybe they don't agree with me on everything.
Right.
Maybe and that's a good thing, right?
Sure.
So it creates this friction and this interest, and it forced people to kind of say, all right, well, it turns out that I don't have to agree with everything to work with somebody.
Right.
And then out of those meetings, they'd have to go out and start knocking on doors, and that's the ultimate meetup, because now you're forcing yourself to talk to strangers who definitely don't agree with you on stuff. But there was that sense of human interaction,
Yeah.
in all, and that gave people a sense of how somebody could be a good guy, but also have blind spots. Somebody could be, seem like a real jerk, and yet there's this redeeming quality. It's the same sense that you get living in a neighborhood, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is like you go to the soccer game, all the parents are sitting around, and, some guy or gal may not be your cup of tea, but then you see him hug their kid, and you go, oh,
And
you know what?
he's all right.
He's all right.
Well, and that's foundational to democracy working.
Correct.
And what happens now is that with us and them, and with all these social media platforms, being individuals' reality.
Right.
So there's no conversation. You just got people blasting away at your face all day.
And the whole reeling, the algorithm.
Yes.
It does capture your mind and send you down a very narrow track in a way that, and it's interesting for me. I said, like, my brain doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you. With me, it's mostly like sports videos.
Yeah, sure.
But I see how this mechanism works, where you can just get on a track, and that algorithm is powerful, and you will suddenly be consumed by this thing for half an hour, and you look up and you've wasted a whole bunch of time. But what it's also done is it has narrowed your world significantly, and if you get on a political or social track on those reels, it's hard to break.
It'll break your brain. And it's so terrifying and disturbing that where you don't, and also the dopamine part of it. It's that people don't have necessarily, whether they do or not, it'll annihilate their sense of values. It'll annihilate principles, in a way, because it works them up by delivering this thing.
Well, it is well known. I mean, this has been documented. That,
right.
The design of phones, the way social media apps are set up, a lot of that is science-based that arose out of figuring out how to make
addiction, right?
Figuring out how to make slot machines.
Sure.
I mean, there's a reason why all these pings and lights, and,
right.
Stuff comes up on your phone.
Yeah.
When notifications come, if you haven't silenced it on your phone, right? Just that sense of the only game I really play is on my phone is Word with Friends with Pete Souza, my old photographer from the White House.
Sure, took our picture.
Yeah, and it's just a way for us to stay in touch.
Yeah,
there's a very particular ping that comes up when he's played.
Yeah,
and if I haven't turned my phone off, I could be in the middle of negotiations on a nuclear treaty.
Yeah,
that ping goes off. There's a part of me that's like, you know what? I wonder what he played. Right? So all that is shaping the political environment in ways that even when you and I talked in 2015, that didn't exist. And now the interesting thing is podcasting is obviously it's gotten segmented and it's getting chopped up. So if they listen to the whole thing,
Sure.
that I think is different.
Yeah.
You and Rogan, I just came up.
Yeah.
Started right around the same time. And it was interesting to me when people started criticizing Bernie or somebody else. Why wouldn't you? Yeah, of course, no. If you have time then that is consistent with democracy. To me, engaging in a honest conversation that's not just yelling, not just trying to score points, but all right, I'm going to take time to listen, and then I'm going to
Sure.
kind of share how I'm thinking about things.
Still valuable.
That part of it is valuable, and the fact that we can have access to that, that we can in some ways participate in that conversation, I think is actually not the big problem. The problem that happens with podcasts is that they get all chopped up, and then it gets put up on the video stream.
The content is common. The one thing that we did was always keep the audio, so then we were kind of, it's harder to deliver grand and people that listen to my show are into the whole conversation. And I think what you're talking about, which, I try to kind of understand or wrap my brain around, is that there's a tribalization happening in terms of, even if Bernie, goes on Joe, that, Bernie is focused and he knows what he wants to say. But, when it's taken out of context or it's solely looked at by a bubble of people, that the message can become obscured, right, and diminished.
Yeah, but look, there's this young state rep, James Tirico, who was on there a while back out of Texas.
Oh, that guy's good, right?
He's terrific, a really talented young man, and it does require a certain confidence in your actual convictions to debate and have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with you on a whole bunch of stuff.
What makes him so good, though? Because there is something grounded about him that you had it too.
You know what? So in our foundation, a lot of the work that I do is working with young civic leaders, political leaders, journalists, human rights lawyers, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And one of the first things I say to them is, know what you really believe.
Right.
Like, that's your starting point.
Right.
And if you know what, first of all, if you understand your convictions, you got a moral compass, you got a code, you've spent time wrestling with what it is that you care about and what you believe.
Yeah.
Then it's a lot easier now to be open and actually listen to other people. And as opposed to constantly trying to beat off anybody who might contradict.
Right.
Your current perspective. And I think a guy like him, his starting point is say what I believe. And it doesn't mean that and by the way, it doesn't mean that you can't practice the art of diplomacy, that you can't say it
Compromise.
in ways that are more likely to be received.
Right.
But I think now more than ever, what people long for, and then the word authenticity gets overused, I think. What people long for is some core that seems absent. Just a sense that the person seems to walk the walk. Doesn't just talk the talk.
Well, there's a vulnerability of that. at you and still stand strong.
Correct. And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable and
Painful.
Yeah. Look, and I think that's there's been a lot of postmortem about Democrats and progressives, and I saw your stand-up where you said somehow we figured out how to be so annoying.
We annoyed the average American into fascism. Yeah.
which cracked me up because I wasn't as funny about saying this, but even 4, 5, 6 years ago, I'd say you can't just be a scold all the time. You can't constantly lecture people without acknowledging that you've got some blind spots too, and life's messy, and so the vulnerability, I think, comes in and saying, I've got some more convictions. I'm not going to compromise. But I'm also not going to assert that I am so righteous and so pure and so insightful that there's not the possibility that maybe I'm wrong on this.
Sure.
Or that, other people, if they don't say things exactly the way I say them or see things exactly the way I do, that somehow they're bad people. And so there was this weird, what I saw and I think this was a fault of some progressive lines, almost asserting a holier than thou superiority that's not that different from what we used to joke about, coming from the right and the moral majority, and
Right, with
our
this,
way, and a certain fundamental
because it was also a single issue. That if you have progressives, like, how you straddle this in general, constant control backed by the right. And then you have the left who are like, well, he drove a lot of people, and then it never goes.
I get my ass kicked.
Right. But it seemed like the intention on your behalf, and I noticed this is something that happened to me recently. I was in Canada, for a couple of days, and I was talking to somebody up there, and I said the best thing that Trump has done is bring your country together.
They seem to be rallying around the maple leaf.
But it was fundamentally like, despite whatever differences they have, and there's a parliamentary system up there, but as individuals, that however they were leaning culturally, right or left, that when the bullying started and the tariffs started and the threats started, they were able to go down to their core beliefs of what their country meant, and what it meant to them, and how they were going to come together and rebuild from the inside. So it struck me as like, well, how are, and I know the answer to some level, how are we not capable of it? How is it that most people don't understand the civic responsibility or the civic structure of how this country is supposed to work outside of the people that are shamelessly against it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the way I describe it, America has always had warring narratives. I mean, a lot of American history is a war of ideas.
Right.
And I gave a speech, probably the speech that is closest to my heart that I gave throughout my presidency was the speech I gave on the 50th anniversary of Selma, the March on Selma over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And I talked about that clash being as important as Gettysburg, Appomattox. You got on one side John Lewis and the ragtag band of Pullman Porters, maids, clergy, rabbis, roses and dogs and all that. And what John Lewis represented was the narrative that says we the people means just what it says. That we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. And on the other side was conquest, hierarchy, and domination. And if you didn't have property, you didn't vote. Women weren't involved. And that was always part of America, too.
Right.
And